right, welcome everybody to the Training, Learning, and Development community. Thanks for joining. I know we have a bunch of people registered for it. The invite went out, so we should have people coming in soon. And yeah, so we have another community showcase with Stephanie Diggins, who, I don't know, you've been on broadcasts multiple times.
Yeah, I think this is my third.
Yeah, third time. I know we've had you on panels. You participated in an event, and it's great that we can actually catch up. I think it was in 2021 that we first chatted, maybe, and
yeah, something like that.
Coming of that chat was one of our first sort of freelance events. What came out of that one?
Yep.
Yeah, and so yeah, there's so many things that I have questions about with you. Just curious about what's been going on. So yeah, let's catch up a little bit. Okay, so the last time we talked, it was all pretty much like you were focused on freelancing, relatively new instructional designer. I mean, it's been a couple years now, so you've been doing it for a bit. Still a freelancer?
Yes, I am still freelancing. But it's more so on the side now than being like the main focus. Okay. But yeah, I still have two clients that I'm working, or I have two clients that I got this year that I'm working with. Some of my previous contracts ended, which the nature of freelance, that's how it goes. So yeah, and one of my contract jobs actually led to a full-time position. Okay. And that's where the higher ed comes in. Wow. Last year, kind of beginning of the fall, end of summer, beginning of fall, I randomly saw and applied for a contract position for an instructional design job for one of my local universities, and interviewed, ended up getting it. And that contract was only supposed to last a couple of months while somebody was out on maternity leave. And after, like, when we were getting towards the end of the contract, the manager of the team really wanted to keep me on, and so talked to her boss, and then he talked to his boss, and so they figured out a way to keep me on part-time after the contract ended. And then beginning of this year, I was approved for full-time. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
Let me just real quick, if you could just describe sort of that journey from your shift from into instructional design. Like, you were a teacher before, right?
I was a teacher.
Yes.
I left January of last year when I left teaching. And I had initially, like, I kind of randomly stumbled upon instructional design when I was still teaching. And so I was like, oh, I kind of want to learn about this. It's very similar to teaching in a way. I mean, obviously there's like differences, but it seemed like a fairly easy thing to kind of get into while I was still teaching. So, and I was looking for, some money on the side just to make a little extra money, because we all know teaching doesn't pay all that much. So kind of stumbled into it, ended up getting my first contract, my first freelance contract through Upwork, but then I also got a freelance contract through Sarah's Ed. And so those were kind of like my first two kind of instructional design gigs. The one through Upwork, I was working with a gentleman who was contracted by a larger corporation to create a course for them. And I was able to, initially it was like just PowerPoints, and I was able to kind of bring that over in to Storyline and show them what Storyline could do. And so I was actually learning how to use Storyline while I was working for my client. And then the Sarah's Ed position, it was more so like Um, it was a little bit closer to lesson planning
Yeah.
than instructional design. So I was lesson planning, but I was also creating like online activities.
Okay. Okay. So this is different now that you have a
Mhm.
full-time instructional design job. I mean,
Mhm.
is are you enjoying it? I mean, is it you say you're still keeping the freelance stuff on the side, but you've got
Yeah.
this full-time position now? I mean, are
Yeah.
you like you all good with that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the university I'm working for, it's a small university. So, a lot of people, like everybody kind of knows each other. And my team, like the team that I work with, the instructional design team that I work with, they're all amazing and they're
Yeah.
super helpful and they were super welcoming um and the professors that I work with as, part of my job actually appreciate my expertise. And so it's definitely a lot different than, when I was teaching, like feeling appreciated and feeling like you're respected as an expert.
Yeah. Yeah. So having been a teacher before and then and then you went on the freelance instructional design thing.
Mhm.
Now coming back to academia, I guess, does it feel like it's sort of a comfortable, you know, um evolution, I guess, of your career?
So higher ed is definitely going to be more comfortable for those coming from the teaching
Yeah.
world, because it's still education,
Yeah.
right? It's not corporate training or anything like that. So it there is a certain level of comfort,
Mhm.
um, but the actual job is very different than what I was doing when I was teaching.
Okay. Right, right. Definitely. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I bring up some stuff? Let's see like just some things that I know for instructional designers like that maybe are in the higher ed arena, just some challenges that I have. And if anybody in the audience I see, let's see who is in here right now. I always see Quetzal's movie avatar, but let's see. Oh, Danny's here. Deborah G, Cindy. Oh, thanks for dropping in. Elizabeth, Diane. Thanks, everyone. But okay, so how about this one? Resistance to change at in a university, like as an instructional designer. Do you get that at all? Is there anything that you might come up with that you feel like you had seen previously, but they might not be as, you know,
Yeah, so the resistance, like the few instances of resistance that I've seen have been more with like particular SMEs.
okay.
Um, but this university at like the college that I'm working for as a whole is actually changing a lot. The majority of their classes are going online now
Mhm,
instead of that face to face anymore, because they learned from the pandemic
mhm.
that most students at this point want to take online classes versus having to go and like having to do face to face.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. So the because most students want to do online classes now, and this my university is going more towards online than it ever had before. There's a lot of work for me and my team to do.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. And so talk about the how you're approaching like collaborating with your SMEs. Where was the resistance there, or what is a little different?
So one of the things that isn't as prevalent in higher ed is the use of storyline to create learning. Like, um, my university calls them learning objects. So that's something that we're actually starting to introduce more into our work with SMEs. And some SMEs are like, oh, like are super into it and like, okay, I can do a lot. And then others are like, no. they're the whole mindset of like writing essays. That's what you're constantly having to like kind of pull the SMEs back from is, okay, for assignments, don't just give them quizzes and essays. You want to give them like more interactive opportunities.
Right. So prior to like, so introducing storyline is a little bit of a challenge, is what you're saying into this university.
Yeah. And so, and originally only one of my team members has a storyline subscription through the university.
Okay.
By the end of this month, myself and another one of my team members will also be getting subscriptions through the university. So we're starting to like kind of push a little bit more for the use of storyline or even Rise to create these like more interactive activities for students.
So that's another thing, like budget constraints, right? Is that kind of an issue too?
Yes and no, because like our budget is fairly decent because we've got our enrollment has gone up because of the offering of online classes versus face-to-face. So that's been really nice. It's more so any tools that we use, any third-party tools that we use have to be vetted by the university, and that takes time.
I see.
To like get that vetting and get that approval. And so
Nice. So tell me, describe like what your team is like, how you like the how where you function in relation to the faculty and all that.
Yeah. So so the way that our team is kind of split up, like we're the ID team. So we only focus on instructional design. I am in charge of the College of Health Professions and Nursing Sciences. Another teammate is in charge of, and then the rest of my teammates are in charge of different colleges. So when it comes to either developing a new course or redeveloping an existing course or even refreshing a course, I specifically work with any courses that are coming from the college that I am attached to.
Okay.
So, and then I work with the SMEs on either developing, redeveloping, or refreshing.
Has there anything about it moving into sort of this full-time role with the university that's been like really challenging for you?
I think probably the most challenging thing is when I was freelancing, I could work whatever hours I wanted to, and whenever I wanted to, for as long as I wanted to. For the university, I have to work. I'm working 8:30 to 4:30.
Okay.
So it's getting into that set schedule again, but I do work remotely. Like I do not have to go into the university except for like between 2 and 4 times a year. I'm still trying to figure out, but like we usually have either a quarter or twice a year. I can't remember because I haven't been there long enough yet to really like have it stick. But we do like a faculty-wide, like staff and faculty-wide meeting in person at the university. Luckily, it's 15 minutes down the road from me, so it's not far. But I'm working from home still. I have my nice, beautiful new office because I moved earlier this year. So nice. I have an office, like a much bigger office than my previous office. And this past weekend, a friend of mine actually helped me finish decorating and like really setting up my office. So now I'm like, I have this amazing office to come and work in every day, and I'm excited about it.
That's great. That's great. Very cool. I'm going to read something from chat. I know Quetzal is like, of course, going at it with some of his puns that he likes to share with us. And
I see that.
Very much distracting. But Cindy is saying, Cindy met another university ID today who says her biggest challenge is getting the educators to bring more interactivity versus to make the learning more engaging.
Yep.
You're
Yep,
running.
and that goes along with what I was saying with storyline, and like we're doing like, you know, project-based learning, or you know, well, group projects you have to be very careful with, because you know, teachers love their group projects, and being a former teacher, I know how others, like I know how students can be when it comes to group projects, and you've got like the one person who basically does the whole project and the one person who does nothing, and you know, and then you have to make sure that okay, they're not getting equal grades, because the one who did nothing doesn't deserve to get full credit. So it's like working with the SMEs on how to come up with a fair way to do a group project, to come up with the learning objects, or come up with like, or help them like kind of figure out what kind of project they can do throughout the course, if they want to do like a course on project, that kind of thing. So
Right. Now, so I mean, what would you say? Yeah, thanks, Kitzel. It's tough to articulate that they need to rise up. You guys work these things out.
But like when I kind of when I've shown some of my SMEs in the chairs what I could do in articulate, they got really excited.
Okay.
So that they just need to, like, once you start to show them the possibilities, like especially in my college, they love to continuously push the envelope, so that their courses are really good.
Okay. So
So
if there was an instructional designer that you were chatting with and they were having challenges bringing more interactivity into the courses, I mean,
Mhm.
what kind of advice would you give them?
um I think if you show them the possibilities, that will help with the buy-in.
Okay.
Because until I showed them examples of storyline, they couldn't wrap their head around what it could do,
Hmm.
or even what it is. And same with Rise. Like until you show them an example, they can't wrap their head around it, because it's something that is not used as much in the higher ed world versus the corporate world. Like corporate world, you talk about storyline Rise like constantly, because that's the norm in that world, um but not in higher ed.
Yeah.
That's also been an adjustment, because you know, since I started freelancing, it's been all about storyline and Rise, and honing my skills with those, and you know, working with people who knew exactly what they want for in storyline and Rise, and so now it's like kind of showing them what they could have.
So what are you primarily like? What kind of authoring tools or what are you using to build your learning objects now at the university?
Storyline. Well, it will be as soon as
Okay.
they get as soon as they purchase the license.
Right, right.
But yeah, it's going to be storyline and articulate Rise.
Oh, nice, nice. But prior to that, so like the stuff that you've been doing there, what have you been doing? What have you been doing?
So prior to that, it's just building in Canvas.
Okay.
Canvas is their learning management system that they're using. They used to use Blackboard. They switched over to Canvas. So like our process is, I work with the SME to help them plan out the course. They, you know, just like lesson planning, they have a template that they fill out to
Mhm.
plan out the course and plan out the assignments and stuff like that. And then I build it in Canvas. They take a look, we make modifications. So it's like using, essentially it's, if they don't want a learning object, then essentially it's, you know, what is available for me to use in Canvas.
Right, right. Okay. All right, great. Um, I want to say, so it's been a couple years, you've been kind of at this, and I think you've really been hustling, from the
Been
beginning.
trying.
You really have, like from the beginning, we put together that first freelancer event, you were active in it,
Mhm.
you know, and
Yeah, that was fun.
and I see that you're like involved with TPLD now. So
Yeah, I haven't been as involved with TPLD lately.
okay.
I was much more involved with TPLD in the very beginning. If any of my teacher friends are like, okay, I need to not teach anymore, then I point them to TPLD, because TPLD has great resources for transitioning teachers. So I'm always going to have like some sort of connection with TPLD. I'm just not as active with them anymore. But Allison's amazing. She's been kind of running things because Sarah, who we all love, is she just had a baby.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, she's taking care of herself and her family, which is very well deserved.
Sure. Yeah, no,
So,
it's great. And Cindy's asking, how long it took for you to transition from teaching to ID. And I think I'd mentioned it was 2021 when you
yeah,
kind of reached out to me. I think it was the end of 2021. And
yeah,
you must
it
have still
was,
been teaching then.
yes,
Hmm?
yeah, and the it was right around the time that I put in my notice for
Right.
teaching.
Yes.
Is when I reached out to you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
is when I knew I was gonna leave, um, because I needed to. It's not just that I wanted to, I needed to leave.
Mhm.
Um, and so I was getting into like the freelancing, but I couldn't find as many resources for like the business side of freelancing. There's lots of stuff out there for the instructional design side, but not so much for like the business side.
Mhm.
And even now it's been a learning curve. Like I didn't know, I didn't even like I had my business license from the state, did not realize that I needed a business license for the city. So I just recently had to retroactively purchase my business license for last year, and then also for this year for the city that I live in.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had to deal with that, and then the thing that trying to deal with right now is making sure that I pay my taxes for the city, because I have to pay city tax as well, um, on the profit that I earned while running a business in the city. So that's been interesting to say the least. Um, so it's like I'm still learning about the business side of freelancing
Mhm.
even over a year later.
Okay. Because, as you know, there are so many transitioning teachers, right, that are trying
Mhm.
to break into ID. And right now, it's not the best time. I think that things are starting to get a little saturated, from what I hear anyway, and that it's more
It's
challenging.
People have been saying that for since even before I got into ID,
Okay.
that it's getting saturated, and I don't know how much I believe that.
Okay.
mm, there are still jobs out there. A lot of companies are doing online training versus in person.
Mm.
So the work's there. It's marketing yourself.
Right.
And
Well,
that's something that's hard for teachers,
yeah.
because we don't have to market ourselves.
And I want to ask you about that because,
Yeah.
let's just say it's been like less than 2 years you went from a teacher to now having a
Mhm.
full-time job at a university as an instructional designer.
Mhm.
If you can go back to, say December of 2021 and give yourself some advice, what would that be?
Uh, I think the advice mostly would just be like, it's gonna work out. 'Cause transitioning into a completely different job is terrifying.
Mhm.
And figuring out what you need to do to be successful in that new job, in that new career path, is also terrifying. Um, and that's why a lot of people end up having imposter syndrome, where they don't feel like they're remotely qualified for what they're doing or trying to do, but they actually are. The skills, it's a lot of the same skill set going from teaching into instructional design, but it's applying those skills in a different way.
Mhm.
So being able to change your mindset out of teaching and into instructional design, that's probably one of the toughest things to do. But it's possible.
Did you?
And connecting with people and connecting with the ID community, because the ID community is amazing. Um, that that helps you start to change your mindset.
Right. Did you do any of the things like any of the boot camps or any of these? You know,
Mm-mm.
you didn't. Okay. And
Nope.
how did you manage to find a full-time job and and survive to this point? I mean, it's according to so many people out there, it's like if you don't do this and sign up and pay us all this money, you're not going
It's
to be able to find a
don't
job.
need to pay anybody a dime.
Yeah.
Well, you do not need to pay for the boot camps. You do not
Yeah.
need to pay for the academies. You do not need to. Um, 100%. Like it really comes down to marketing your skill set.
Yeah.
I still have recruiters reaching out to me to talk to me about opportunities because my LinkedIn profile is good,
Yeah.
because my portfolio is good, right? Because I've actually branded myself.
Yeah.
Um,
How
I mean,
did how did you?
I don't know if you can see it. It's gonna be kind of, because it's light, but I've got my logo behind me, the
Uh-huh.
Diggins design. So it's like not only just branding yourself, but completely embracing your branding.
Yeah. Nice. How did you get your storyline chops? How did you learn and articulate?
Um, just by doing it, just by
Yeah.
playing around with it. Storyline, like something you got to remember, storyline is essentially, and this is kind of watering it down a little bit, but it's like it's a souped up PowerPoint.
Yeah.
You know how to use PowerPoint, then you can figure out how to use storyline. Plus the eLearning Heroes community is so good. If you want to do something and you're like, I don't know how to do it, chances are someone has asked the eLearning Heroes community, so you can find help. If you find something that you want to do or something's not working and you've checked and you can't find any resources to help you with it, then you can post a question to the eLearning Heroes community. People respond. They try to help you. So it's that there's tons of YouTube videos on how to do stuff. I think Devlin Peck is constantly showing you how to do stuff in Storyline. Same with Tim Slade. They're constantly trying to show you how to do stuff in Storyline. So it's, and those are all free resources.
Right. Right.
So it's utilizing those free resources,
Yeah.
which you obviously don't have to pay someone to do.
Right. Right. No, and they do also offer paid opportunities, right? You can take
Mhm.
workshops and stuff from
Yeah.
Tim, but the free stuff, take advantage of it when you can. So, okay.
Yeah.
Stephanie, last question. This is sort of interesting. Because I'll tell you, you were the first person that ever just sent me an email and said, "Hey, can you host an event on freelancing?" I'm like, "What the?" Someone's
That's my superpower, is going, like, if I get an idea stuck in my head, I'm like, okay, who do I need to contact to
right,
get it working? And then I have no issues reaching
right.
out.
No, and it was a good one because I'm like, "Who is Stephanie Diggins and what? She wants me to do an
Yeah.
event on freelancing? I'm like, I've
That's why I
never
got my
had
students
any.
great opportunities when I was teaching, because I had no qualms about reaching out to people and saying, hey, I think this would be a great opportunity for you too.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it is like, well, yeah, I guess I can post one on freelancing. Why not? And so now it's like anytime anybody asks me if they, like, I mean, next month we're hosting one on for the Black and L&D community, and so it's
Yes.
like, yeah, so anybody can come. I love that now. So let me
Yeah.
ask you this last question: if I could host another event for you, like, what would it be?
Oh. It would probably be freelancing again.
Yeah,
Another
freelancing one.
freelancing event. And then even getting more into the business side,
Okay.
like as much as possible into
Yeah.
the business side. And I know that can be that's hard because the laws and what you need to do change from state to state.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it would be I think it would be that, like, really getting into the business side of
Okay.
freelancing.
Well, I'll keep that in mind. I love Parker and Andrea, so maybe I'll yeah, this is another
Yeah.
opportunity to reach out with them and do something again, because they were wonderful to work with.
Oh yeah. No, they're great. They're
Yeah.
great. And ID Lance is doing so well. Like, they're doing so well with ID Lance.
Mhm.
It's they're blowing up.
Great.
Like, for the freelance world, they're doing great.
That's good to hear. No, they're wonderful. All right. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for doing this again.
Of course.
We appreciate your time and for supporting TLDC. Good luck with everything. I would love to catch up again at some point on your story and see how that goes at the university. And everybody out in the live audience, thank you for joining today. We have 3 more showcases next week. Plus, I believe it's going to be on Monday. Going to be talking with some folks about, it's either Monday or Tuesday. We'll be talking about ATD ICE and the experiences that some folks had there
Nice.
recently in San Diego. And so we'll be talking about that. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next week. Thanks again, Stephanie.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone.